Huss introduced the first Frisbee ride in 1994. The Frisbee is a swinging pendulum ride with a disc-like gondola that seats 40 people facing to the inside. The arm can swing up to 90 degrees and is powered by a tire drive system located under the gondola when in a parking position. A very similar system can also be found on Huss's pirate ships. They also use a very similar system for the transportable units to set up the supports. The Frisbee was available in both transportable and park versions.
The transportable version fits on 5 trailers. The first Huss Frisbee made its debut with German showman Rohbraun on the Freimarkt in Bremen in 1994. Huss ended up producing 19 Frisbees in total, 8 of which were originally transportable and 11 permanent versions. Huss built their last original Frisbee in 2003 for the British amusement park Pleasure Island, which sadly closed down in 2016. This Frisbee now operates at another park in UK named FLAMBARDS.
Sadly, out of the 8 transportable Huss Frisbees produced, none of them are still actively traveling. There are, however, still 16 Huss Frisbees operating at parks around the world. Italian manufacturers like Fabri and SBF Visa have made copies of the original Huss Frisbees. The easiest way to tell an original Huss Frisbee apart from a copy is the drive system. If the ride is not powered by a drive tire system under the gondola, it's definitely not a Huss.
And in 2004, Huss constructed the Frisbee 34. The Frisbee 34 is basically an original Huss Frisbee but with outside-facing seats and a lower capacity of 34 riders per cycle instead of 40. The maximum speed of the gondola is also reduced to 12 revolutions per minute, while the original Frisbee can rotate at 17 revolutions per minute. The only Frisbee 34 is named Free Swing and is located at Tongdo Fantasia in South Korea. Free Swing still operates there to this day.
The Huss Giant Frisbee was introduced in 2003. That is the same year that the original Frisbee was discontinued. The ride was an evolution of the original Frisbee design intended to be sold to large parks. While the idea for the Frisbee came from the original Huss Frisbee, the design itself was completely changed. The Giant Frisbee did away with the wheel-like drive system found on the Pirate and original Frisbee, replacing it with a set of high-power electric motors found at the top of the pendulum. These propel a massive 19-meter or 62-foot pendulum arm that can swing up to 120 degrees. This pendulum arm is connected to a completely redesigned gondola. This new gondola seats between 40 and 50 riders facing outside, depending on the model chosen. This makes the 50-seat version the highest capacity pendulum ride ever produced, other than the Super Pendulum by Chinese manufacturer Juha Rides, and that ride can seat 54 riders. The ride, when not operating, stands at 24 meters or 79 feet, and when at full swing it apparently stands at 43 meters or 141 feet. These are the numbers officially given by Huss. However, adding the height of the pendulum arm and the height of the structure, we get 43 meters, meaning that the ride would have to be pretty much completely upside down to reach this height. Huss also advertised that the ride can hit 1,000 riders per hour on the 40-seat version, or 1,250 riders on the 50-seat version. However, achieving this would require 25 cycles per hour. However, this does not seem to be possible. Each ride cycle, as timed by a POV, as Huss curiously does not give an average cycle time, seems to last about 130 seconds. That's not counting loading or unloading, just the amount of time it takes for the ride to run one cycle. This means that the absolute maximum number of cycles that a Huss Giant Frisbee can do in an hour with this cycle time is 23 cycles, leading to an absolute maximum capacity of 1,150 riders per hour for the 50-seat version and 920 riders per hour for the 40-seat version. Of course, as mentioned before, this is not counting loading and unloading, and this will vary from park to park depending on a number of factors. So, in taking into account the words of a former operator of one of the Giant Frisbees, they said to me that a good hour was about 12 cycles on a 50-seat version, which gave them a maximum capacity of 600 riders per hour at the absolute best of times, and that is, of course, accounting for loading and unloading, as well as the cycle time. Now, the first Huss Giant Frisbee was sold to Paramount's Kings Island in 2003. It was named Delirium and was set up in the Action Zone section of the park, where it still stands today. Huss advertised to Kings Island that this ride could reach speeds of up to 122 kilometers per hour or 76 miles per hour and pull up to 4.5 Gs. Though as we have seen before, it would not be surprising if these stats are exaggerated.
Delirium was a huge hit for Kings Island and it cleared the way for more Huss giant frisbees to be sold. In 2004, 3 giant frisbees were sold, opening as Giant Frisbee at Nagashima Land in Japan, Tondemina at Fuji-Q Highland, also in Japan, and Sledgehammer at Bobbejaanland in Europe, and this is the only giant frisbee Huss produced for Europe.
In 2005, Cedar Point looked to one-up Kings Island by adding MaxAir, another Huss giant frisbee. Following this, 3 more giant frisbees were sold to parks in China. Apollo opened at Happy Valley Beijing in 2006, Giant Frisbee opened at Chimlong Paradise in 2007, and Storm opened at Romanyu Park in 2015. After these 3 rides, only one other giant frisbee is known to have been sold, and this one was also named Giant Frisbee and was sold to Magic Mountain the amusement park in India in 2019. Interestingly, the last 2 giant frisbees sold by Huss have both been 40-seat versions. Huss still heavily promotes and advertises the giant frisbee as one of their most popular rides. Now, of course, the giant frisbee and frisbee both sparked a lot of competition. These 2 rides basically created an entirely new genre of ride that still thrives today, though Huss themselves have seen little of this success. With the KMG Afterburner becoming a much more popular alternative to the normal frisbee, and the Zamperla Discovery becoming a much more popular alternative to the giant frisbee. Huss themselves were rumored to release more variations on the original frisbee, with rumors saying that they would unveil a Frisbee XL at the 2003 IAAPA Expo, and this ride would have been a mix of the giant frisbee with a larger version of the original frisbee gondola. There were also rumors that they would produce a Giant Frisbee 55, a 55-seat version of the original Giant Frisbee. However, neither of these rumors ended up coming true, and currently the only Huss Frisbee you can still buy is the Giant Frisbee. Alright, so I have had the pleasure of riding 2 of the Huss Giant Frisbees. Both of them are the only 2 located in the United States, and both of them in Ohio, oddly enough. So I did ride Delirium and MaxAir. Of the 2, I always preferred MaxAir. It just felt like it had a more intense cycle. That being said, if any of you are aware of the situation with MaxAir, well, it's not been open since 2019 reliably. It was open a little bit in 2020, and they tried to open it last year, but it's not really been open consistently since 2019. However, it is reopening in 2022, which is why it's such a great time to be making this video. And it really is a good ride, and I'm really happy that it is reopening. It's a very popular ride for the park. In the years that it's been closed, I've gotten questions all the time, when is MaxAir going to open? It's very popular for the park overall. It's very visually impressive, especially in the location it is in. It just looks huge when you're walking down that midway towards Gatekeeper. So it's a really nice ride, really good addition for the park. I'm really hopeful that it has a smooth year this year, and more people get to experience it. As far as the ride experience itself goes, this was the first pendulum ride that I ever rode. I believe I did MaxAir first, could have been Delirium. But either way, as a kind of standard candle to measure against other rides, it's really good. I'd say it's right in the middle. You get some good airtime, you get some good forces. The restraints on it, honestly, are kind of uncomfortable. They're very bulky, like around your ears, which, I mean, you're not going to get headbanging, you know, it's not a roller coaster, but it's still kind of awkward. So I'm not a huge fan of that compared to like the Zamperla Discovery, which has much more thin restraints. And compared to a Discovery, I would say it's about on par with a Giant Discovery, and I would take the Giga Discovery over it. But it's still a very, very good ride, and definitely a ride that you should look forward to riding if you are in the state of Ohio, because these rides are seemingly kind of rare, which is kind of weird. Alright, so that's my experience with the Giant Frisbee. Now, Alex has been fortunate enough to be able to ride both the Giant Frisbee at Bobbejaanland and a couple of the standard Frisbees.
So yeah, I did ride the only giant frisbee in Europe at Bobbejaanland. It was okay, just the cycle was really short in my opinion. It hit the top like 2 or 3 times, which is not enough in my opinion. But well, and as you said, the restraints definitely aren't the best, but I don't really mind it that much on this ride. But still a very enjoyable, great ride, and I wish we had more of them. And then the original ones, these were really, really good. Definitely the transportable versions. I had the luck to see the last remaining transportable one in 2016, which sadly got sold some years later to the USA. It really was one of the most beautiful rides I've ever seen. The hand-painted decorations all around the ride were just so beautiful. And I've also been on a park version, which was a lot slower, and it definitely was not as intense as the transportable version. But that's just because the park doesn't run it right, if I can say it like this. They don't run it as fast. I have seen another park version at Duinrau, but sadly that one was closed on my visit, and I was very, very pissed because I was really looking forward to ride that one because I heard it was one of, if not the best park version of the Huss Frisbees. But well, I'll have to return to the park to check that one out. But I would love to ride more Huss Frisbees. They're awesome rides in general, they look great, they ride great, and they're just a classic ride. Very great to have.
They really are, especially when you consider the amount of rides that have come based off of that design, that we have now. It's really created an entire new genre of ride that didn't exist before. So it's certainly a very important ride for the industry as a whole. That being said, that is about everything we have on the original Huss Frisbee and Huss Giant Frisbee. If you think we forgot anything or have anything to add, leave it in the comments below. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.